In a press conference last week, Benjamin Netanyahu remarked, "History proves that Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. If you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good." And the words sparked an immediate reaction, with some hearing in them a hard realism about the world. Others were troubled by his dismissal of the way of Christ. And Netanyahu later clarified that no offense was intended, um, but that he was arguing that moral strength alone is not enough without military power in today's security environment. And yet, even with that clarification, the question still remains: does history ultimately belong to Genghis Khan or to Jesus Christ? And it's precisely into that question that the story of Palm Sunday speaks. There's something both joyful and deeply unsettling about Palm Sunday and Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Cloaks are thrown on the road, branches are waved, voices cry out, "Hosanna to the Son of David." It feels a bit like a coronation ceremony. And yet within days, the mood will shift. The same city that welcomes Jesus will reject him. The same voices that praise him will fall silent or even turn on him. But Matthew is not simply recounting an event here. He is seeking to shape a vision of discipleship. Writing to a largely Jewish Christian community, he draws deeply on the scriptures of Israel to help them and us to see what kind of king Jesus is and what it means to follow him. Jesus approaches Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives and sends two disciples to fetch a donkey and a colt. This is no small detail. It's a planned, deliberate, prophetic act. Matthew tells us this happens to fulfill the words of the book of Zechariah. "See, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey." Now, in the ancient world, kings rode war horses into battle. A donkey was something completely different. It was a sign of humility, of peace, of a different kind of authority. So Matthew, again, as he has done from the very beginning of his gospel, shows that Jesus redefines the expectations and the hopes of Israel, and also redefines the concept of kingship. He does not come as the conqueror that many expected or longed for, not as a liberator, a military liberator, not as one who will meet violence with greater violence, as many of us, if we're honest, secretly desire often in our hearts. But as a king, he comes, whose power is expressed through gentleness, integrity, humility, courage, and costly sacrificial love. And Matthew's gospel is written to create and shape disciples of Jesus. And so he wants his readers to understand that if this is your king, then this is also your way. The crowd, of course, has its own expectations. They cry out from using words from the book of Psalms, Hosanna, which means save now. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. They call him Son of David, a title rich with hope for national restoration, for deliverance, for the fulfillment of, of God's promises as they understand them. And they are not completely wrong, but they do not yet see the whole picture. Because the king they welcome will not overthrow Rome in the way that they are hoping for. He will not secure victory through force or violence. He will not become Genghis Khan in order to defeat Genghis Khan. Instead, he will walk a path that looks to the logic of the world like weakness. But in truth, it carries a power that can change the course of history. Jesus is planting small seeds, mustard seeds, to use his own language, mustard seeds of transformation, seeds that over time begin to challenge the very values upon which the Roman Empire itself was built. Values of power, spectacle, domination, and peace through violence. And in time, those seeds begin to bear fruit. And so, for example, in the year 391 AD, the Christian monk named Telemachus traveled to Rome, and he entered the great Roman Colosseum, where crowds had gathered to watch gladiators fighting to the death. And as the spectacle unfolded, Telemachus ran into the arena, and he stood between the fighters and is said to have cried out, "In the name of God, stop." The crowd roared in anger, and in the chaos that ensued, one of the gladiators struck him down, killing him there in front of them all. And yet in that moment, something shifted. The story tells us that the crowd fell silent. One by one, people began to leave. Something in that moment, something in that act of costly, self-giving courage pierced through their hunger for violence. A quiet turning of the hearts happened in the crowd. And from that time on, the games began to lose their hold on the people of Rome. The tide had turned. It's a small story, almost hidden in the vast sweep of history, and yet it points to a deeper truth, that the way of Jesus can, in time, overturn even the most brutal of systems. But it is a way that is not without cost. And here, quietly but profoundly, the image of Isaiah's servant of God or suffering servant comes into play. Though not quoted directly in this passage, the echoes of the book of Isaiah's suffering servant are unmistakable. The one who comes gently riding on a donkey is the one who in Isaiah 42 does not cry out or raise his voice in the street. The one who, according to Isaiah 53, will be despised and rejected, a man of sorrows. Matthew has already linked Jesus with this image of Isaiah's servant of God earlier on in the gospel. And now as Jesus enters Jerusalem, that identity comes into sharper focus. The king is Isaiah's servant. The one who is acclaimed will be the one who suffers, and the one who is hailed as the Son of David will reveal his kingship not through domination, but through self-giving, costly love. And this is the paradox at the heart of Matthew's gospel, the heart of all of the gospels, in fact. And so the question raised at the beginning begins to take on a different light. If the world says that only ruthless power prevails, if history seems to favor the strong, then what are we to make of a king who chooses this path? Is this naive? Is it impractical? Or is it in fact the deepest truth about the nature of God, the divine, and the shape of reality? Is it the way that brings the way of heaven to earth? Because here is the quiet challenge of Palm Sunday. Jesus does not simply reject violence when he tells one of his companions in the Garden of Gethsemane to put away his sword. He refuses to become what he opposes. He embodies a way of being in the world that does not mirror evil, even in the process and in the act of confronting it. At the end of the passage, the whole city is stirred, and they ask, "Who is this?" And the answer comes, "This is the prophet, Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." It's a true answer, but yet not a complete one, because Matthew leaves the question open, not just for Jerusalem, but for us as well. Who is this? Is he a prophet, a teacher, a symbol of goodness, a king who redefines power, the servant of God in Isaiah who reveals the heart of God, the one who shows us that true life is not found in grasping and controlling, but in doing justice, living justly and walking humbly with one's God. Often, like the crowd, we want a God who will fix things quickly, who will triumph visibly, who will confirm our assumptions. But the way of God revealed in Jesus comes gently, quietly, subversively, riding not on a war horse, but on a donkey. And so we too stand where those crowds once stood, caught between two visions of how the world works. One says that history is ultimately shaped by those who are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough to prevail. And the other is revealed in the quiet, unsettling figure who rides into Jerusalem on a donkey, who refuses the sword, who walks the path of self-giving, sacrificial love, even to the cross. And as we enter this Holy Week, we are not asked to settle that question for ourselves in theory, but invited to live it in practice, in the choices that we make, in the spirit that we embody, in the way we interact with others, both friend and enemy. For in the end, the question is not only about empires or nations, but about the very shape of our own, very ordinary lives. Does history ultimately belong to Genghis Khan or to the crucified Christ? And perhaps just as importantly, which one are we becoming? Just some food for thought as we stand on the edge of Holy Week, as we journey towards Good Friday and Easter Sunday. God bless as you chew on some of these things.